3 months after liberating New Meridian, Cole sat in the Shrike's engine room and admitted something he'd been avoiding. They'd outgrown their ship. "The structural integrity is fine," Victor Ross said, running a diagnostic scanner along the primary power conduits. "But you're pushing systems beyond their designed capacity. The particle accelerators alone draw 30% more power than the reactors were meant to handle." "Can you fix it?" Cole asked. "I can patch it, but what you really need is a complete overhaul. Expanded power systems, additional crew quarters, dedicated engineering spaces." Ross pulled up a schematic on his tablet. "Basically, you need a bigger ship." Cole had suspected as much. The Shrike was an excellent vessel for a small crew running quick operations, but their work had evolved. They were taking on larger missions, assembling bigger teams, and operating for extended periods away from Haven's Gate Station. The ship that had served him perfectly for years was now a limitation. "How much would a refit cost?" he asked. Ross did some calculations. "To do it right, 250,000 credits, maybe more. That's assuming I can source military-grade components at reasonable prices." Cole whistled. They had funds from recent operations, but that would drain their reserves significantly. Riley appeared in the doorway, having to duck slightly in the cramped engine room. "We need to talk about the warehouse situation, too." "What's wrong with the warehouse?" "Nothing if we were planning to stay small." She gestured for them to follow her back to the main living area, where Crix was working on communication systems. "We've had 6 legitimate job offers this month alone. Colony protection, recovery operations, even a request from a Terran governor to investigate corporate corruption." "We can't take them all," Cole said. "Exactly. Because we don't have the personnel, the infrastructure, or the space to coordinate complex operations." Riley pulled up a holographic display showing their current assets. "We're running a growing operation out of a rented warehouse with a 4-person crew and a ship that's barely holding together." Crix chittered agreement, his clawed hands pausing over the console. "Arya, what's your assessment?" The AI's voice came through the ship's speakers. "Riley is correct. Our current configuration is insufficient for the operational tempo we've maintained. Additionally, Haven's Gate Station presents security concerns. We're too visible here, too easy to track. If Vorenthal or Helix remnants wanted to locate us, this would be an obvious starting point." Cole sat heavily in his chair, processing the reality. They'd built something significant over the past months. A reputation, a network, a purpose. But the infrastructure supporting that work was inadequate. "So what do we need?" he asked. Riley had clearly been thinking about this. "First, a proper base of operations. Not a rented warehouse on a station where anyone can monitor our movements, but a dedicated facility somewhere remote." "That's expensive," Ross pointed out. "Less than you'd think," Riley said. "There are abandoned mining colonies throughout the outer reaches. Places that failed economically but still have intact infrastructure. We could acquire one for maybe 50,000 credits, then invest another 100,000 in refurbishment and equipment. Second," she continued, "we need a bigger crew. We can't keep relying on freelancers for every operation. We need dedicated people, a full-time engineer, security operators with diverse skills, support personnel." Crix pulled up his own data, showing personnel requirements based on their recent missions. The Talixin had been tracking this for weeks, apparently. "How many people are we talking about?" Cole asked. "Core crew of 8 to 10, Riley said. Engineer, 3 or 4 security operators, intelligence specialist, medical personnel, and support staff." "That's a small army." "That's a functional team," Riley corrected. "Right now we're overextended. We're asking Arya to handle communications, intelligence gathering, and electronic warfare simultaneously. Crix is doing navigation, technical support, and coordination. We're all wearing too many hats." She was right, and Cole knew it. The New Meridian operation had succeeded, but it had also exposed their limitations. They'd barely coordinated 3 ships and a dozen people. Larger operations would require better infrastructure. "Arya, start searching for suitable locations," Cole said, making the decision. "Abandoned colonies, remote outposts, anything that meets Riley's criteria." Ross put together a comprehensive refit plan for the Shrike. "Include everything we need for a crew of 10 and extended operations." "What about recruitment?" Riley asked. "That's your department, but I want people we can trust. Run full backgrounds, verify their stories, and make sure they understand what we're actually doing here." Over the next 2 weeks, Arya identified 7 potential locations for their hidden base. They narrowed it down to 3 finalists. Then Cole, Riley, and Crix took the Shrike on a survey mission to inspect them personally. The first location was a failed mining colony on a barren moon. The infrastructure was intact, but the environment was hostile, constant radiation storms and no atmosphere. Everything would require environmental suits and sealed facilities. Too much maintenance, Riley judged. We'd spend more time fighting the environment than actually working. The second was an abandoned research station on an ice world. Beautiful in its desolation, with intact buildings and working power systems. But it was too close to established shipping lanes, too easy to stumble across. The third location was perfect. The planet was designated CC 5719 on official charts, marked as economically non-viable after initial surveys found minimal mineral deposits. It had breathable atmosphere, temperate climate, and enough vegetation to support the failed agricultural colony that had briefly existed there. The colony itself sat in a valley surrounded by mountains, natural defenses that limited approach vectors. 20 buildings in various states of repair, including a landing pad large enough for multiple ships, a power generation facility, and a communication array. It's isolated, Riley observed as they walked through the abandoned structures. 3 jumps from the nearest inhabited system, no regular traffic, and the planetary surveys were conclusive enough that nobody's coming back. Cole examined the main administrative building. The structure was sound, just needed cleaning and equipment. Power systems? Crix chittered from the generator facility, his voice coming through the comm. Arya translated, he says the fusion reactor is intact and operational, it just needs fuel and basic maintenance. Water? Cole asked. Underground aquifer, Riley said, checking her scanner. Clean and plentiful. The original colonists drilled 3 wells that are still functional. They spent 2 days surveying every building, testing systems, and assessing repair requirements. Arya compiled a comprehensive report. Total cost to make the facility operational would be approximately 120,000 credits, including equipment, repairs, and defensive installations. We do this, Cole decided. This becomes our primary base. We keep minimal presence on Haven's Gate Station for coordination and supplies, but our real operations center is here. The purchase was handled through intermediaries Ross recommended, shell companies that obscured the actual buyers. For 70,000 credits, they acquired legal ownership of the entire colony site and mineral rights to the surrounding territory. The work began immediately. Ross brought in contractors he trusted, people who understood the value of discretion. Over 6 weeks, they transformed the abandoned colony into a functioning operations center. The main administrative building became their headquarters, tactical planning rooms, communications center, and living quarters for permanent staff. The old warehouse facilities were converted into armories and equipment storage. The medical clinic was refurbished and stocked with supplies. They installed defensive systems throughout the valley, automated turrets hidden in the mountains, sensor arrays monitoring approach vectors, and hardened bunkers for emergencies. If anyone came looking for trouble, they'd find a fortified position rather than a soft target. Simultaneously, the Shrike underwent her refit at Ross's private facility. The work was extensive. Expanded engines, improved power systems, additional crew quarters, dedicated engineering spaces, and enhanced weapons. She's going to be beautiful when we're done, Ross said, showing Cole the progress. Faster, tougher, and capable of supporting a 10-person crew for months without resupply. The cost was staggering. Between the base acquisition, facility refurbishment, and ship refit, they'd spent nearly 400,000 credits. Their reserves were depleted, and they'd taken on debt to Ross for some of the work. But it was necessary investment. They were building infrastructure that would support operations for years to come. Recruitment proved more challenging than expected. Riley interviewed over 30 candidates, running extensive background checks and psychological evaluations. Most were rejected for various reasons: questionable loyalties, incompatible values, or simply not good enough. The first hire was a woman named Dana Cooper, a former merchant marine engineer in her early 40s. She'd spent 20 years maintaining ships in the frontier, developing expertise in keeping vessels operational with limited resources. "I'm tired of working for corporations that only care about profit margins," she explained during her interview. "I want to work for people who actually give a damn about doing the right thing." Riley verified her background thoroughly. Clean record, Excellent references, no criminal associations. Arya ran psychological profiles confirming Cooper was stable, competent, and genuinely motivated by principles rather than just credits. She was hired as their chief engineer, responsible for maintaining the Shrike and all equipment at their new base. The second hire came through Victor Ross's network. Thomas Park, a security operator with 10 years of military experience followed by 5 years doing corporate protection work. He was Asian, early 30s, with extensive training in both combat and intelligence gathering. I left corporate security because they wanted me to do things I wasn't comfortable with, Park explained. Intimidating union organizers, suppressing workers who demanded better conditions. That's not why I learned to fight. His background checked out perfectly. More importantly, during the interview process, he demonstrated the kind of tactical thinking and ethical framework they needed. Park was hired as head of security operations, responsible for coordinating defensive measures and training additional security personnel. The third hire was unexpected. A woman named Jennifer Hayes who applied for a security position but turned out to have completely different valuable skills. I did 6 years in corporate intelligence before I got tired of spying on competitors, she said. I'm good with weapons, trained in hand-to-hand combat, but my real expertise is hacking and electronic infiltration. Riley tested her claims, giving her access to a secured system and challenging her to break in without triggering alarms. Hayes succeeded in under 20 minutes. She's better than some of my infiltration programs, Arya admitted privately. Her approach is creative and adaptive in ways pure code can't match. Hayes was hired as their intelligence specialist, working with Arya to gather information and tap into hostile networks. The fourth hire came through an unusual channel. New Meridian colonists recommended a man named Raymond Liu who'd been stranded in the outer reaches after his transport company went bankrupt. Liu was in his 50s, a former professional chef who'd spent 30 years cooking in high-end restaurants before deciding he wanted adventure. He joined a colonist transport as ship's cook, only to be left behind when the company folded. I can shoot if necessary, he said during his interview, but my real value is keeping people fed and happy. You'd be surprised how much morale matters on extended operations. Cole was skeptical until Riley pointed out that they'd been living on ration packs and whatever they could scrounge from stations. Having someone who could actually cook would significantly improve quality of life. They brought Lou to their new base for a trial period. Within a week, he'd transformed their dining situation. Using supplies from Haven's Gate Station and local vegetation he'd researched, Lou produced meals that made everyone realize how terrible their previous food had been. He stays, Cole decided after a particularly excellent dinner. Anyone who can make ration packs taste like real food is worth their weight in credits. Lou was hired as their cook and supply coordinator, responsible for provisions and morale. The final core hire was medical personnel. Riley interviewed several candidates before finding Dr. Angela Martinez, a physician who'd worked in frontier colonies for 15 years. Martinez, a physician who'd worked in frontier colonies for 15 years. She was competent, experienced, and motivated by a desire to help people rather than maximize profits. Frontier medicine taught me to be resourceful, Martinez explained. You learn to work with limited supplies, improvise solutions, and handle everything from routine injuries to major trauma. Her credentials were impeccable, and her personality meshed well with the existing crew. She was hired as their medical officer, responsible for health services and emergency response. With the core crew assembled, they spent 2 weeks at the new base learning to work together. Dana Cooper immediately bonded with Crix over technical challenges, the two of them optimizing systems and improving efficiency throughout the facility. Thomas Park established security protocols, training everyone in defensive procedures and emergency responses. Jennifer Hayes worked with Arya to create a sophisticated intelligence network, monitoring potential threats and opportunities. Raymond Liu transformed the base's dining facility into something approaching a real restaurant, complete with a small garden where he grew fresh herbs. Angela Martinez set up a proper medical clinic, stocked and ready for anything from routine checkups to combat injuries. The dynamics were good. People respected each other's expertise, collaborated effectively, and shared the core values that defined their operation. 3 months after starting the expansion, Cole stood on the landing pad of their new base and watched the refitted Shrike descend from orbit. Ross had delivered as promised. The ship was transformed. She was larger now, the hull extended to accommodate additional crew quarters and expanded systems. The new engines glowed with barely contained power, and enhanced weapons bristled from reinforced hard points. Dana Cooper immediately began inspecting her new domain, walking through the engineering spaces with the critical eye of someone who knew what to look for. She emerged smiling. "This is beautiful work," she told Ross. "You've given me everything I need to keep her running perfectly." The crew gathered in the base's common area that evening, their first meal together as a complete team. Lou had prepared something special: actual steaks from locally hunted game, fresh vegetables from his garden, and a dessert that made everyone groan with satisfaction. "I want to thank everyone for being here," Cole said, standing to address the group. "We're building something important. Not a corporation focused on profit, not a military unit following orders, but a team that chooses to fight for people who need help. We won't always agree on everything," he continued. "We'll argue about tactics, debate priorities, and sometimes make mistakes. But as long as we stay focused on our core purpose, protecting people who can't protect themselves, we'll be doing something that matters." Riley raised her glass. "To second chances and better choices. To fighting the good fight," Park added. "To not dying horribly," Hayes said with a grin. Everyone drank to that. Over the following weeks, they settled into routines. The base became home, each person finding their place in the rhythm of daily operations. Cooper maintained the Shrike and facility systems with meticulous care. Park ran security drills and established patrol schedules. Hayes built intelligence networks and gathered information. Lou kept everyone fed and happy, his cooking becoming a highlight that people looked forward to. Martinez handled medical needs and began cross-training everyone in emergency first aid. Aria coordinated everything, her processing power now distributed across the base's network. With Hayes's assistance, she'd become even more sophisticated, capable of managing complex operations while maintaining security. Crix thrived in the new environment, finally having the space and resources to fully utilize his technical expertise. He and Cooper had become close friends, their collaboration producing numerous improvements to both ship and base systems. Cole and Riley split leadership duties naturally. He focused on strategic planning and mission selection, while she handled day-to-day operations and personnel management. They developed an effective partnership built on trust and complementary skills. The first real test of their expanded capabilities came 6 weeks after the base became operational. A colony in the Helios sector requested help dealing with a corporate land grab. A mining company was using legal technicalities to force colonists off valuable territory. It was exactly the kind of problem that required their diverse skill set. Hayes hacked corporate records to find evidence of fraud. Park coordinated with local colonist leaders to organize resistance. Martinez provided medical support to colonists who'd been injured in confrontations with corporate security. The operation succeeded without firing a shot. Exposed by the evidence Hayes uncovered, the mining company withdrew its claim and the colonists retained their land. "This is what we're supposed to be doing," Riley said afterward. "Using our capabilities to solve problems that authorities won't or can't address." More requests followed. Some they accepted, others they declined based on their criteria. Did it help people who needed it? Could they execute it successfully? Did it align with their values? They became selective, building a reputation not just for effectiveness, but for integrity. People learned that Cole Sterling's crew could be trusted to do the right thing even when it cost them. The financial situation stabilized as successful operations brought in credits. They paid down their debt to Ross and began rebuilding their reserves. The investment in infrastructure paid dividends, as they could take on more complex operations with greater efficiency. 6 months after establishing the base, Cole called a team meeting to discuss their future direction. "We've built something remarkable here," he said, looking at the assembled crew. "We have a secure base, a capable ship, and a team of skilled professionals. The question is, what do we do with it?" "We keep doing what we're doing," Park said. "Taking jobs that matter, helping people who need it." "Agreed," Cooper added. "But we should also think about expanding our capabilities. There are technologies we could develop, equipment we could acquire that would make us more effective." Hayes pulled up a holographic display showing intelligence she'd gathered. "There are dozens of situations throughout the sector that could benefit from our intervention. Corporate exploitation, criminal operations, corrupt officials. We're barely scratching the surface. We can't solve every problem, Riley cautioned. We need to pick our battles carefully, focus on situations where we can make real impact. Martinez nodded. And we need to maintain our health and morale. Even the best team burns out if pushed too hard. Lou stood up from the kitchen area where he'd been preparing food. May I suggest something? We're thinking about this like it's just business, but we're also a family now. We should make decisions that protect both our mission and each other. The room fell quiet as people considered that perspective. Lou's right, Cole said. We're not just colleagues or employees. We're people who have chosen to work together for something meaningful. That matters more than any mission or operation. Crix chittered agreement, his sentiment clear even without translation. So we continue building, Riley said. Carefully, sustainably, with attention to both our capabilities and our well-being. We take on operations that align with our values, invest in our infrastructure, and support each other. Everyone agreed with that approach. As the meeting dispersed, people drifting to various tasks or relaxation, Cole found himself on the landing pad watching the sunset. The valley was beautiful in the fading light, mountains casting long shadows across their base. Riley joined him, 2 cups of coffee in hand. Lou had taught her how to make it properly, and the improvement over their previous attempts was remarkable. We did it, she said. Built something real and sustainable. We're still building, Cole corrected. This is just the foundation. True, but it's a good foundation. She sipped her coffee, looking out at the valley. You know what's funny? 6 months ago we were fugitives hiding from bounties, desperate and barely surviving. Now we're running a legitimate operation with a trained crew and a purpose. People can change, Cole said. Situations can improve. You taught me that. Riley smiled. I learned it from you. You gave me a second chance when you had every reason not to. They stood in comfortable silence as darkness fell. Inside the base, lights came on, windows glowing warm against the night. Someone laughed, probably Hayes telling one of her stories. The smell of Lou's cooking drifted from the dining facility. It felt like home. Arya's voice came through Cole's comm. I'm detecting an incoming transmission on our secure channel. It's coded as urgent. Cole and Riley exchanged glances and headed inside. The team assembled in the operations center as Arya displayed the message. It was from Patricia, Riley's intelligence contact. Her face appeared on the hologram, expression serious. Riley, I have information you need to see. It concerns Vorenthal. He's been quiet for months, but I've just learned why. She paused. He's been building an alliance. 3 major criminal organizations have joined forces under his leadership. They're planning something big, and your names are on their target list. The message ended, replaced by data files containing detailed intelligence. Park immediately began analyzing the tactical implications. Hayes started cross-referencing the information against her own intelligence networks. Cooper and Crix examined facility defenses. Cole felt the familiar tension of an approaching threat, but this time it was different. They weren't scrambling to survive or improvising with inadequate resources. They were prepared. They had a team, infrastructure, and capabilities that could face whatever was coming. Arya, full analysis, he ordered. I want to know everything about this alliance, leadership structure, resources, operational patterns, vulnerabilities. Already compiling, the AI responded. Riley pulled up tactical displays. We'll need to brief the entire team, review our defensive protocols, and prepare response options. Agreed, Cole said. But we do it methodically. No panic, no rushed decisions. We have time to plan properly. Thomas Park nodded approval. Smart, panic gets people killed. Preparation keeps them alive. Over the next several hours, they analyzed the threat and developed response strategies. The team worked together smoothly, each person contributing expertise and insights. By the time they finished, Cole felt confident. Vorenthal's alliance was dangerous, but they were ready to face it. We've come a long way, he said to the assembled team. 6 months ago, this threat would have been existential. Now it's just another problem to solve. Because we planned ahead, Cooper said. Built infrastructure, recruited good people, invested in capabilities. Exactly, Riley agreed. We're not reacting anymore, we're ready. The team dispersed to rest and prepare. Tomorrow they'd begin detailed planning for whatever came next. Cole remained in the operations center, looking at displays showing their base, their ship, their resources. They'd built something remarkable, an organization capable of fighting for what mattered, protecting people who needed it, and standing against forces that exploited the vulnerable. It wasn't perfect. They still faced threats, still had limitations, still made mistakes. But they were ready, and that made all the difference. The stars shone through the operations center windows, endless and bright. Somewhere out there, Vorenthal was planning. Others were suffering under oppression they couldn't fight alone. But Cole Sterling and his crew were preparing too, building strength, gathering intelligence, ready to face whatever challenges emerged. They'd started as fugitives and bounty hunters. They'd become something better, protectors, fighters for justice, and proof that people could change for the better. The future would bring battles, challenges, and dangers they couldn't yet imagine. But they'd face it together as a team with purpose and preparation. And they'd win, because that's what they did.